everyone. So today we'll talk on why working harder may be keeping you stuck. And I have to say, stay with me because this goes against, it's counterintuitive to what most people believe, right? And I'm going to basically say it's the hustle culture versus identity creation. We're kind of taught from childhood, it's like the harder you work, the more you'll get. The harder you work, the more you'll get, right? Which kind of makes sense to the logical mind. But I could ask people right off the bat, does Elon Musk work 10,000 times harder than his mid-level employees? I'm not, if you just it's not about just doing the hard work. So just let's have some fun with it. Okay. And as I always do, what can you learn today? All right. What new insights can you get? Right. What can you adopt or adapt? And how can you enjoy today? I always like asking that. Right. So today, just kind of throw those in there. Now, because we're kind of taught, the work harder, push more, grind longer, it's kind of interesting, right? Because it kind of makes sense on one level. And I guess if you work more, if you're being paid by the hour, and it's especially in a union shop, you might make more. But it's kind of trickled into everything that we do, right? I know my friends that are used to be professional bodybuilders would always say the thing they had to get through their head, and some of you know this guy, as our dear friend Jeff Neal says, most people overtrain and they don't get the results that they need. And last time I was up there, I was training at his gym, and that's when I realized how out of shape I was because I thought I was dying. I said, man, this workout's killing me. He goes, we just finished the warm up. But he'd say the hardest thing he has to do with the guy that was getting ready for a world championship in boxing, I think it was boxing, is to take time off. You gotta take time off, right? Again, this work harder, push more, grind longer sounds powerful, right? But what it programs, I'm convinced of this, is it really programs in I'm not enough yet. I'm not enough yet, right? And if that kind of statement hits with you, or, if I just did more, right? And it leads to the life of hustle, right? I remember it was something that posted up online where Elon Musk was telling a group of people, work 80 to 100 hours a week, 120, da, 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 da. Okay, great. That's hustle. That's how you'll get ahead. And his assistant, one of his old assistants who was with him way back to before the PayPal days, said, I don't know. I've never seen him work over 20 hours a week in my life. Not saying he doesn't work smarter, right? But so just, the life of hustle, right? But really, and as you all know, I'm into the nervous system, the neurology of it. It trains your nervous system into stress, urgency, and pressure, right? And then it'll eventually get in there that you won't complete anything till the last minute because you got 27 other projects going on, right? From a different field, I remember I heard or read a thing that a pretty good writer, I think most people would agree with, Stephen King, make the statement that once he starts a book, he doesn't research another book. He doesn't write down notes on a next book. He finishes the book in front of him, right? And he said as he got into it, he learned he had to take some breaks, right? And you begin to build your dependence on effort, right? Even though a lot of us have had those magical experiences where something worked out great and you didn't have to work hard at it. Right place, right time, if you're into manifestation or things like that, things happen. But it starts the inner dialogue of self-blame, guilt, things like that, right? If I just worked harder or more, I would make it, right? But we all probably know people who are some of the hardest working people you ever met that never made it, right? Right? And we have Maria on the call from beautiful Southern California somewhere, right? Could be LA. Yeah, is it LA or the desert?
I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's a town that can tell you hard work may not get you ahead, right? I mean, you need to be able to work hard, but it's just things happen, you know. But it starts that, and then the flip side. I should have put this in the PowerPoint. It starts the also not just the shame, guilt, and remorse that you're not doing enough. If you do something and it works and it wasn't hard, you feel guilty, right? It's like it should be more of a struggle, right? I think that's why, and Maria's here, so I could say this, right? I think that's why you see these actors start acting like acting is so hard. Oh, you know, I go away for 3 months and I do this and I do that. You know, it's like, you know, as Anthony Hopkins says, I don't know, I learn the lines and I just act, you know. But it's like, I think that's the hustle culture built in. You know, we have to make it look hard. So, oh, I lost something here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, it's the hidden cost of never enough. But who profits from slamming this into us, right? Corporations, bosses, the government, right? And think about marketers, right? If you just drove the BMW, then you'd be happy, right? And another friend on the call, his original industry created the whole engagement ring phenomenon. Was never there it was either the late 20s or 30s. It's like, no, we got to convince people you got to spend 3 months of your income on a ring, right? It's like that, then you'll be happy. And I'm always thinking about how many of us have had a friend, usually at our age, a lot of people on the call, usually their kids, they do the mega expensive wedding, right? And then 2 years later, they're divorced. You know, it's like I heard his name. He's a funny actor, but he's talking about he will never go to a destination wedding because he did one. He flew to Greece for the wedding, and they were split up by the time he got back because he stopped in Italy for a week, and he goes, "I came back, they were separated." But I mean, it's that whole idea. Well, you do the big wedding, that would be another, you know, mislinkage, right? Will the big wedding ensure a long marriage, right? And think about the internet marketers, work harder, right? And some coaches, right? And part of that, they build the myth into all this stuff that, you know, you buy a coaching program or something to learn. Well, if it doesn't work, it's because you didn't work hard enough, right? And so, yeah, I always, you know, as I've heard other people say, Bruce, that always look at who's making money on this, right? Who's making money on it, right? So Neville Goddard, one of my favorite guys, I think Bruce likes him a lot. I've turned a lot of people on to him. Is you don't get what you want, you get who you are. You know, and once you cross that Rubicon, you change your identity, you know, results seem to follow, right? But then that's the paradox is, if you're stuck here, how do you get there? But that's the shift is, you know, you don't think about what you have to do to get your result. You have to think, who do I have to become? Who do I have to become, right? I'm sure somebody said it before Neville, probably one of the Greek philosophers who took it from, you know, even older philosophers, you know, things like that, right? But going back to my big thing on the identity chain, a lot of these things become your inner dialogue, right? You say, I need to work harder, I need to grind more, I need to do this, right? Which will affect your state, your outlook, eventually it becomes your identity, right? As opposed to the people that just have the identity of who they want to be. So the hustle identity, I'm a grinder, I have to push, which sounds good. Well, as I said, the flip side to that is if you do something that works easily, you feel guilty. It feels wrong, and then you screw it up to make it hard. I don't know if anybody here has ever done that, but then you screw it up to make it hard. So you could justify it, right? And then struggle becomes normal, right? And I think that's the trap. So stop asking, what do I need to do? Start asking, who do I need to become? And be prepared, we could do a talk on this later, that you probably will have imposter syndrome at first, right? And the power move is to break from the crowd, and that's where the imposter syndrome, there's things we can do to help beat it, is when it comes up, if you can just say to yourself, that's not who I am anymore. And it could be, I'll give one from my life, me and my self-disclosure too much. I've had my doctorate since 1992. I got licensed as a clinical psychologist in first state, wonderful state of California, which I'm still licensed in. In fact, I got to renew it. It's going to cost me close to $1,000. California is an expensive state to do business. But so I had the license, which means I could call myself a psychologist. Just getting the degree, as we see in the hypnosis and coaching world, doesn't mean you're a psychologist. In most states, you have to actually be licensed somewhere. But anyway, I never used it. I was doing coaching. I was blessed to run around the world teaching NLP. Would do some addiction stuff where it wasn't a requirement. Never really used it, right? So, and when I do something, people say, it happened a lot in Asia. Should we address you as Dr. Horton? And it felt wrong, right? No, I'm just a hypnotist and NLP guy, right? But then I got a job as the clinical director for the mental health unit at a Florida state prison, right? That's a cool story I should tell someday, but the quick highlight is the real estate market had just crashed. I lost all my money in these couple of deals on real estate. And I got to beat that out of my identity. So I got this gig, right? So I went in for the interview. Tell you how powerful NLP is. I really shouldn't even be getting the interview, right? Even though I had my license, kept my license up to date, all this other stuff. I didn't really do a lot of that type of clinical work, chronically mentally ill, institutionalized, stuff like that. So I go in on the interview and I used what we would teach in NLP, mirroring and matching, asking questions. I remember I looked at them, both the regional person for the prisons and this other lady, and I went, well, I'm sure you'll know when you found the right person, right? And so I did a couple other things, mirror and matching, got me the job. In fact, when I left, they called me on the way home and said, well, we got good news and bad news. I said, okay, what's the bad news? Well, we're not offering you the staff psychologist position, Dr. Horton. I said, well, then what's the good news? Well, we'd like you to become the clinical director, right? Which paid like 12 grand more a year and actually did a lot less, right? So I took the job. But anyway, the thing about imposter syndrome, when I showed up, I'm meeting everybody and the social workers who did most of the line therapy and all the, what are they called? Corrections officers, right? And I was meeting the corrections officer on the psych unit, and they were talking, and I introduced myself as, I'm Will, just call me Will. And I remember the captain goes, they will address you as doctor, right? Because it was a real, Patrick could relate to this. It was a real military organization, right? And you were addressed by your rank or position, right? The corrections officers, not the mental health staff. So I got, and I remember I felt like an imposter, right? And it took a little while, and I called a friend of mine who did a couple of NLP techniques on me, right? And then it just became part of who I am. But you got to be ready for it at the beginning, right? I was talking to someone I know who is an actor, acts a lot like in the world I'm a little bit involved in, the horror industry or the horror film world, which is interesting. It's not my genre I watch, but I've been in a lot of those movies, right? And he was talking that when he first got his big break, he felt like a fraud, right? In fact, the guy that's the head of the Screen Actors Guild right now, Sean Austin, I think is his name, and he was in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, his dad was a big actor and his mom and all that, but he goes, when he got cast in that, you know, with all these classically trained British actors, he felt like a fraud. Does that make, I just hope that makes sense to everybody, you know, when you first make it. So be ready to do the power move and break from the crowd. So if you're stuck, you may not just need more effort. You may need a new identity, because I believe, and I'll talk about this next week, when your identity shifts, it starts attracting different things, even if you're not trying to attract it, you know. And if you change how you define yourself, your world begins to reorganize. So, you know, that's just a little bit of this. So wherever you're watching this, click like and subscribe, of course, as we always say. And always go to hortonpsychology.com if you have any questions or want to reach out, and change your identity to change your world. So you train like a performer to be an elite public speaker. That's coming up soon. Again, if you like this kind of stuff, the thing to avoid is boring people with facts. The things to do is tell a story and excess emotion. That influences people. Wherever you're watching this, make sure you subscribe, and please leave a comment and tell everyone around it. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. That's hortonpsychology.com.